Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my reaction to Chapter 23, Part 1 of the main campaign of Dragalia Lost. If you're not caught up on the main story, now is your chance to walk away to avoid spoilers, as we'll be discussing everything that's happened so far, as well as what took place in the Faith Forsaken raid events, Part 1 and Part 2, and those are coming to the event compendium later this week in case you missed out on those. So a lot has happened the last several chapters in Dragalia Lost, including in the side events like the raid event that happened for the 3rd anniversary. Really quite a bit to dive into here, and this chapter took a pivot from the previous one. If you don't remember, last chapter we had a real focus on Bahamut and Nedrick, and Nedrick's goals kind of reconciling with the prince's goals and ambitions. They sort of squared off. Then we got the intervention of Gala Odric, as well as his tragic disappearance. We found out that Bahamut was potentially being controlled or manipulated by some as of yet unknown force. This chapter took us in a very different direction. So Faith Forsaken, the raid event, happened between last chapter and this one, and so we begin this chapter in the aftermath. Once the main party has defeated Satan, the apostles have done their good work in the land of North Grastia and the city of Grams, and yet there's not complete peace and harmony between Grams and New Alberia. They're not necessarily receiving of aid, and there's still a lot of fiends constantly being spawned from the miasma that was left in Satan's wake. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows in North Grastia. Elisan, Ronzel make an appearance just cleaning out the fiends that are left in the northern city. And meanwhile, Shell has gone to Leonidas in the south, seeking some reinforcements or seeking some kind of help, but unfortunately we find out that in the south, black mana void dragons have started to spawn across the land, and Leonidas has his hands full taking care of that. So we're not really able to get any help to our party up north. We're just clearing out fiends, and we also get a little bit of an aside with the actions of Ilya and Zethia and Nedrick. They're up to something in the World Tree, trying to find the World Tree's memories of the Progenitor from eons ago, essentially long enough time ago that it was before even the time of the first War of Binding, before Ilya's time, since the Progenitor and Origin are said to have created the world. So they're off doing that. Our main crew is in Grams and surrounding areas trying to keep the peace and help the people rebuild after the calamity that unfolded there. But meanwhile, we get a very different adversary than we had in the last chapter, as both Beren and the Progenitor make their appearance. And I gotta be honest, this is a little bit heady for me, the idea of the Progenitor seeking to snuff out all possibility in the world, and the Origin being such a force of chaos that yes, there's an embrace of possibility, but also the willingness to erase the world itself. It's a little hard for me to discern what's really right and wrong between destroying the world and creating a world of perfect order. I mean, neither one seems particularly ideal in my mind. But anyway, the Progenitor kind of lays bare their plans to be resurrected in their true form, with Beren sort of serving as their twisted assistant, and Beren having been manipulated because Beren seems to have had a genuine relationship with Phares and actually cared for Phares and felt that sort of familial love from Phares as a brother. But with the Progenitor kind of taking over, there's a tussle for control of the body of Phares from the real Phares, who is still in there, and the Progenitor, who is trying to exert their will over things. So a lot to kind of unpack there. I feel like it's getting a little dicey, the story is, with some of these deeper cuts and lore, but there's some things that I did enjoy that were kind of interjected into this. So one, we find out the Origin, well, that may be a poor choice of words here. We find out that the Progenitor of the cubes that we fought in various chapters is none other than the actual Progenitor. So yeah, apparently those cubes are the Progenitor's minions or I guess creatures, artifacts, relics. I'm not really sure what they are, but they are enemies spawned by the Progenitor that do their bidding. So yeah, that's one thing that we sort of found out this chapter. Another thing is we learn of something called the Primal Mark. It was first name dropped, I believe, in the, what was the name of the raid event? In Ilia's raid event. It's not Dawn of Dragalia. It goes back further than that. Forgotten Truce, I'm pretty sure is what it's called. So the raid event featuring Ilia, Mordecai, and Mine, we heard of something called the Primal Mark when Ilia is working on forging her pact with Elysium, but we really didn't understand fully what it meant. At least I can speak for myself in saying that it was a proper noun, but not one with a lot of context, so I didn't have a lot of clarity on what that was. We find out a little bit more about that from both Ilia and Zethia and Nedric's storyline, as well as the storyline happening in Graham's, that apparently there's, this is something that dates back to time immemorial. Apparently there's, the 5 great worms, Rip Chthonius, not being counted as one of the 5, only one of the 6, I guess. But apparently they're kind of like primordial forces in the world, primordial forces of nature, and their primal forms are among their most powerful forms, with every reincarnation potentially sapping some of their power. And apparently, originally, the Origin and the Progenitor chose a means of passing on a fragment of their power, or having sort of a chosen. And from what I recall, the way they did this was a little bit different as well. So I think that the Origin... Oh no, I'm forgetting. It's too much for me. The story is too much for me, so remind me. But one of them did it in such a way that it could pass from person to person, and so it suggested that, the auspexes, being people with a higher amount than normal of mana, are among the people that that could receive that type of blessing. I think the Origin passed their Primal Mark to Elysium, which seemed odd because Elysium is so orderly and Bahamut feels like chaos incarnate at times. Maybe not quite Nyarlathotep level, but still feels much more random and chaotic and less a keeper of the world than Elysium is. But I believe that Elysium's the one that got the one from Bahamut, or the Origin, and the Progenitor basically passed its will, or their will, on through the different auspexes. And so we also find out that apparently Beren also has some kind of special inheritance from the Progenitor with the ability to manipulate black mana, and the auspexes have the ability to communicate through other worlds, but it's really through the funnel of the Progenitor, who exists in the realm between worlds and is therefore able to sort of pass them through to other worlds. This is very heavy to me for like the main campaign. I could see this in Fractured Futures, like some of the side stories that not everybody reads, but it was kind of a lot for me to take in, not gonna lie. But the really cool thing about it was, I think this is when Ilia and Zethia are finding the memories in the World Tree, but they see some shadows of the primal Great Worms. And that was kind of a hype moment for me, because you can't really see exactly what they look like, but they're kind of the silhouettes. And we also found out today, on the day of release of this chapter, about our next series of endgame fights. So we're starting with Primal Midgard-Sormr. It seems like he's going to start in his humanoid form and then maybe switch into the Midgard-Sormr Zero form. And we're going to get some new 6-star weapons from them that deal damage and can give a Primal Dragalia kind of boost as well. They do apply Curse of Nihility at the start of a quest, so sorry to all the people that don't like Curse of Nihility out there, but this is a concern that I had in my Twins review video, and yeah, it seems like that's at least going to be a component of these battles. But anyway, that's what kind of has me hyped, just seeing their silhouettes and thinking about the possibility that they're really part of this next arc. The interesting thing that could come from this, I think, is just the idea of Kronos, as well as a amalgamation or fusion of the different Great Worms back into one being. Are we going to get Dark Emperor Yuden? Not totally sure. It still feels like a lot to track for me with this chapter, like when it's really Phares talking versus when it's the Progenitor talking. That's kind of hard to follow. The fact that Valix and Chell like almost broke through to Beren or seem to, and then Beren just kind of goes off the deep end, and really all of these issues he has with not being loved and being rejected and not having familial companionship, it really just seems to have driven him to a point of madness where he doesn't even really want Phares' affections by the end. He's like, no, I'm more about the Progenitor lifestyle. Sorry, Phares, but like I'm gonna be the vessel of the Progenitor now. So yeah, that kind of happened, and not gonna lie, Beren's kind of like my least favorite of the siblings right now. It just feels like, I don't know if there's gonna be a breakthrough with this kid or not, but it feels like kind of well-tread ground at this point, and just kind of insanity, the level of power. But anyway, enough about Beren. One thing I wanted to say with the Dark Emperor Yuden timeline is that we're going to have another Emperor showing up next chapter. At least that's what I think, because at the end of this chapter, we get a little snippet of what's to come. Not the end of the chapter, but the end of this half, I should say. We get a snippet about what's to come in the second half. And there's mention that yes, Leonidas and crew are busy, but the Diurnell Empire is going to be showing up to help out our party and potentially save the day, or at least temporarily thwart the advances of the Progenitor / Phares / Beren taking over the Progenitor. I know it's a lot. But what that could mean, last I checked, who's still in charge of the Diurnell Empire? Well, it's none other than our forgotten sibling, Emil. So yeah, we may get some comedic moments. That's what the Diurnell lackeys are often used for. But more importantly, could this be the plant for Gala Emil? I could totally see it happening, and I would be there for it, if I actually had the resources to summon. Anyway, I think that pretty much concludes my thoughts on this chapter. This one was a little hard for me to parse. Granted, reset is like at midnight for me, and I actually stayed up for this one, read it right at that time, so I'm sure there are some things that may have slipped through the cracks. Definitely let me know what your thoughts were in the comments below. I'll be reading through those. And if there's anything I missed that you think is important to point out, I'd love to hear that as well. But that is going to do it for today, everyone. So thank you as always for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.